What's up, everybody? It's your boy Jared, and welcome back to my channel, Hormone High, where I tell you all the juicy gossip and stories from my high school days. I'm your host, Jared, and without further ado, let's get into the video. Today, we're gonna talk about Gray's Plague, a mysterious incident that randomly affected the most popular girls in school and turned them into, well, the equivalent of The Walking Dead. But before we get into that, I'm going to cue you in on some background. This is Tyra Hertz, commonly known as TRH, the founder of the HPPS, Hot Pink's Pal Society. She was originally a transfer student from Hypothalamus High, but quickly became the most popular girl in school. At that time, my high school days, that was 35 years ago. And despite this, her legacy still lives on. Now that she had long passed through the HPPS and Hormone High, the group was thriving under the wisdom and tutelage of Tasha Hayward, more commonly known as TSH, and her trusty assistants Taylour 3 and Taylour 4, aka T3 and T4. And don't ask me why they had to be Taylours 3 through 4 when 1 through 2 had graduated 3 years prior. I had to learn the hard way. Moving on. Basically, Taylours 3 through 4 handled all of her business, dirty included. She never contacted any members within her rule directly. If someone needed to be corrected and put in their place, it was likely executed by a Taylour. If someone needed assistance or encouragement, Tasha sent a Taylour. If anything at all was happening, a Taylour was present. And more than likely, it was Taylour 3. That's not to say Taylour 4 never contributed to anything, but Taylour 3 was more active. Jumping back to my past present, the HPPS had just gained a new member, Tanya S. Inveld, aka TSI. And for a while, everything remained the same, until TSI, T3, and T4 all became besties. It was like she was attached at their hip, and her influence on them quickly grew. After a while, the Taylours stopped listening to TSH, and tragically, she hadn't thought much of it. She had seen T3 and T4 constantly keeping up with their work, talking to each other, and keeping the other girls in line. To her, they had become proactive, self-assessing the problems and solving them without being asked. Wishful thinking at best, because they were very much doing the opposite. It was almost like they were under a trance sent by none other than TSI herself. She began to mimic the authority TSH had over T3 and T4, except the work she encouraged T3 and T4 to do was heinous, and they couldn't see it. Even worse, neither could TSH, since she never directly interacted with any other members. They were forced to suffer in silence. What people didn't know, aside from the fact that this whole thing was happening in the first place, was that TSI hadn't acted alone. In fact, she wasn't even the brains of the operation. She was just one antibody out of a whole plan. She was sent by Izzy and Sara, two girls who were extreme antibodies of the HPPS. They fought against everything the HPPS stood for, so they sent TSI, someone who no one knew at the time, to infiltrate the HPPS and bring them down from the inside. And it worked. Perhaps a little too well. Shortly after TSI's rise to fame, the girls began to fall ill. At least it appeared so, because they all contracted very similar features and struggled with the same problems. They became jittery and restless whenever the Taylours were around. They lost sleep at night, wondering what trivial mistake they could make to take the Taylours off. They suffered weight loss from lack of eating at lunch, since they spent the majority of the time scoping out the scenery to make sure the Taylours weren't looking. Their shins gained red skin from the constant groveling they did at the Taylours' feet. You could see them physically tremble in their presence, their hands and fingers getting all shaky. The most noticeable out of them all was the bulging eyes with red brims. Other side effects may include, but are not limited to, heat sensitivity and large thyroid gland, accelerated metabolism, rapid or irregular heartbeat, heart palpitations, chest pain, serious cardiac complications, swelling or redness in the eyes, puffy eyelids, muscle weakness, increased sweating, osteoporosis, cognitive decline, dementia, or even death. Unbeknownst to everyone else, they were all a direct result of TSI's control over T3 and T4, and the consequences of their actions became quite obvious fairly quickly. It didn't require a genius running blood tests, radioactive iodine uptake tests, thyroid scans, or Doppler blood flow measurements to figure out, some would even say diagnose, what these girls were going through. But I guess if you want to be technical, you would use those. Anywho, like I was saying, as it spread among the group's many members, students began to quickly notice that grotesque changes overtaking their classmates, and it was quickly named the Graves' disease, or sometimes Graves' plague. They were used synonymously. So, why Graves' disease, you may ask? Well, compared to their normal posh plus put together bright, bubbly appearances, they look like absolute, for lack of a better word. They simply looked like death. Now, was it really that bad? Did they really look like death? Were they really grotesque pale skeletons with brittle bones caused by osteoporosis limping through the halls? No, of course not. We were just high schoolers. We over-dramatized it by a lot. Like, really dragged it. But that's to be expected. So did they really look that bad? Nah. But was it still bad? I know those girls probably traumatized and talking to their therapist Linda every Thursday because of this event. Yeah, probably. No one truly knows what caused Izzy and Sara to start their antibody HPPS plan, but it was more than likely an outside factor or ulterior motive like wanting to be popular in this case that triggered it. I suppose they found it easiest to take out the competition and therefore make themselves the most popular by a process of elimination. Still, this plan seemed too intricate and devious for two high school girls. So, like anything else, we blamed the whole thing on Jean, the school's scapegoat, and caused for any issue within the school that had no explanation. Luckily for the next generation, and Jean, the administrators had added a mandatory rule to mitigate the effects and chances of this happening again. All clubs and societies must have a minimum of one adult advisor. So later that same school year, their chapter gained a Mindy med to regulate and control the chapter, essentially making sure that none of their girls try to pull anything funny on each other and prevent further abuse. Under her supervision, the girls returned quickly to their preppy put-together bright selves. Sadly, TSI was there to stay, so the effects of her presence weren't completely eradicated, but they were minimized extremely. So guys, that's the story of Hormone High and how the Graves Plague came to be. Follow me for more content stories about my time in high school. I also have a few videos where I integrate my story times with ASMR, peaceful study time POVs, and unnecessary censoring. So, if you haven't already, go check those out. I also post hashtag relatable content, so follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Tumblr for more. That's all for today, guys. So click that subscribe button and notification bell, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace, y'all.